What is going on, guys? Corrosive Bullet here, and today we are going to be breaking down our official tier list for Set 5 of Fusion World. Now, the last time I did this, I seen some of your guys' comments, and I get it. You guys have a favorite deck that you found, or you guys are excited because of certain characters in the game, stuff like that. Like, I understand. You can like what you like, hate what you hate. Like, it's understandable, right? But as I mentioned at the beginning of that video, in the predictions video, I stated that this was going to be a culmination of three people's opinions, which means we had to average out the thing. So now we're going to do this list by myself. It's going to be my thoughts and my thoughts alone. It's going to be vastly different from what the prediction video was. The prediction video in itself was in no way a like definitive like thought process or like my own personal views on what I thought the set was doing. So this is going to clarify things. Now, in order to kind of make this a little bit easier to understand, I did go through and I did readjust some of the labelings that I had for each of these steps. So I'm going to break this down real quick before we kind of jump into it. And then in terms of like how we're going to talk about these decks, because there's so many decks that are in the game now, and there's going to be even more going throughout this year, we're going to just slowly we're just going to talk about things in general and not really, unless there's something really meaningful to really say for these decks, I'm just going to say, oh, they're going to go here, here's why, move on. That's really all I'm going to do. So anyway, so we're going to start up here at the Gods. Gods is like the -- deck. In my opinion, it's the best deck to run of that particular color. So one deck from one color is going to be, for each color is going to be at the top here. Demigods are decks that are able to kind of go hand in hand. Either they're going to be, you can swap the gods and the demigods indefinitely because of how good they both are, or the demigods are just almost at god tier level, but they're like lacking something. So it's like gods and demigods are pretty much one and the same, minus very minuscule like differences between the two, right? In terms of like how strong they are. Strong is, they're very solid decks. You can take these into tournaments or take these into locals, and you could still place very, very well with these decks. These are not these cards are not lacking in any particular way. They might need a couple things here or there to really get them like popping off, but they are still very good decks all around. Basically, Flex is still here, but Flex is basically going to be our decent tier. Our decent tier are decks that can do well in the matchup, but they can be a little lackluster too, depending on things like RNG or just needing very specific hands in order to be able to really pop off, like that kind of thing. Like, it's not like Flex cards can go up into the bottom tier of strong, or they could go to the top of locals depending on how your play style is or how your plays go. Locals is obviously things that you could take to locals, have a good time with, and just do all right. You could do all right out of locals with these decks, and it probably won't be all that crazy, right? And then obviously the bottom tier is going to be the worst deck in the format, just outright. We're just going to put him right there, Daima Vegeta. He just has no good support. His leader ability sucks. Hopefully in the future he gets some support that really kind of bolsters him up and puts him in a place, but as it stands right now, he is terrible. So he's going to go here. Anyway, those are the tiers. Let's kind of get into it. So we're going to start things off really simple. Starter Coup, locals. I still think Starter Coup is pretty good when it comes to pre-releases. He's a very generic leader that can boost any card, and you could build that deck however you want. And in a pre-release format, like, this guy's great because he does a little, it gives you an extra boost on offense and defense, and he's not restricted in any particular way. However, there are just better red leaders out. U7, I'm going to keep towards probably the top of Flex. He got a lot of U7 support. U7 has constantly been given really strong support each and every set. This set, he got some really good options. He got some really strong bodies that you can throw in there. The new Self-Awakening TN plays extremely well off of the 3-cost TN from set 3, I believe, is when that card dropped. And so, like, there's games where you could go on turn 3, you could literally have, you can awaken on turn 3 with, like, 6 cards on board, which is just insane. And you might not even necessarily have lost much in terms of your hand power because of it. So U7 just really solid. Beerus, I'm going to put at the, I'm thinking he's probably going to be mid to low tier of strong. Unfortunately, crit leaders just are not there anymore. They lack a lot of extra draw power that a lot of these other decks just have. And because he's a control deck, he does have to play a slower game compared to the rest of the meta, and therefore right now the meta currently is just fast. It is a very fast meta, and it's very hard for Beerus to kind of to keep up. However, when it comes to control, Beerus is just able to do it best in red. And because of that, like, he can still catch people by surprise on occasion. So Beerus is definitely not like as good as he was in set 1 and 2, but he still stands out as one of the better red leaders. Then we got Top Coup. Top Coup is going to be locals. Again, I mean, there's tournament of power support, but it's really not all that substantial. He's still very hurt by the Kefla being banned, by Roshi being or not banned, but limited. Roshi being banned, Rebrian, Double Striker being banned. Like the set 2 ban list really just affects Top Coup heavily. Honestly, I think you could probably unlimit Kefla and you could put him in, you could have him stand out. Like, if Kefla was unbanned, Top Coup could probably be like up here and strong. I just don't think he's doing enough to be anywhere up here, but I think he'd still be strong if Kefla was unbanned. But because she's not, he's down here. Jiren, oddly enough, despite the fact that the game has gotten faster, and the fact that Yellow is a lot stronger now and has a good matchup into Jiren now, Jiren is still being run. He got no support, really, going into this set. Even, like, generic support nothing really, like, benefits him too much. So he's pretty much playing the exact same game that he has been since last set. However, I would probably say that he's still... he's probably somewhere above, at like top end of flex into maybe bottom of strong. But for now, I think I'm going to just put him right here. And I'm going to put him below U7 just because U7 can just run into... He can just blitz Jiren down really fast. In terms of like matchups, U7's just able to easily go into a 25k leader, no problems whatsoever. Daima Goku, I'm going to put in demigods. Just because, and I'm going to also put Daima Goku up in gods. Now again, gods and demigods can be interchangeable. They usually are run the same way, or they do similar things. And it's really, you could make the argument that either or is the better leader in those particular tiers, but it's more so just, I think Daima Goku is just able to do what he's able to do better than what than Super Saiyan Daima Goku is able to do what starter Daima isn't able to do. The Glorio card is great in both of these decks. Super Saiyan is just able to do it a bit better. A lot of the Daima support is more so kin and benefits the Super Saiyan better than what the Daima Goku is. Daima Goku, you can build more generically, which I think works for him better than what you can do with the Super Saiyan Daima. You can build this guy more generically, and you can make him... you can probably potentially even make him better than Super Saiyan Daima Goku. But in terms of what the curve is between both of these decks and wanting to place Glorio to minus your leader down, like Daima Goku's Super Saiyan is just able to be more aggressive than what this Daima Goku is. As I mentioned with Beerus focuses on the control, and therefore he has to play a little bit of a slower game. This Daima Goku is very similar, but he's meeting him both. Like, this is the halfway point between these two. Is that, oh, we're boosting it up by 10, we're minusing by 10. He's basically just in the middle. You have to play a little bit of a slower game because you want more of a control build with the Daima starter. But yeah, I mean, that's where I kind of see that. And then U7, I had a lot of people really upset that I had him at strong tier. I probably will adjust this in my personal thoughts. I would probably put U7 down in flex, but I would probably put him above. I'd probably put him below U7 just because UI Goku has a big issue when it comes to wider boards, and because U7 is able to facilitate the wider board with relative ease, I think UI just kind of struggles in that regard. So that's where I kind of see this right now, in terms of where red is. Now we kind of go into blue. We already talked about Daima Vegeta, so I'm not going to really talk about him. We're going to put Vegeta here in strong. And I would probably say that he might be better than Beerus. Probably, just because the blue matchup blue has an easier time into the red matchup than most decks. So there's really nothing like in the game that hit. You could basically build this guy a multitude of ways and have it work for you, but the problem with starter Vegeta is the fact that you need to have 7 cards or less in hand to get his leader ability off, which means you have to build the deck in a certain way to help facilitate that hand control, right? You need to be able to keep yourself at 7 at most of the time in order to really get this guy's effect off more times than not. So therefore, his deck is a bit restrictive in terms of how you build it, but he is by no means lacking in terms of strong blue cards. Blue is in a fantastic place right now. And there's a multitude of ways that you can kind of build this deck that facilitates that hand control to the extent that you want it to be at. So he's not hurting. There's just better blue decks out there right now. Trunks, I think I'm going to probably put top of flex, top of strong, bottom of strong. I'm gonna put him at the bottom of strong right now. Just we might readjust this, but Trunks is like, if Vegeta is the aggressive deck, the standard aggressive deck, then Trunks is the standard control deck of blue. Just being able to bounce something 3 costs or more, like 3 costs are actually very important right now, believe it or not. So Trunks' ability gets more value as long as there's a constant influx of strong 3-cost cards. And then on top of that, like you can run stuff that just bottom decks or bounces the hand in this guy, and he's able to just kind of he can make it work. But the problem is that just like Vegeta, there's just better blue decks out there, and he can have a bit of a harder time into the blue matchup just due to the fact that there are a lot of decks that run a lot of 4 costs, 5 costs, 6 costs, right? So, and obviously Trunks can't really do much about those cards, like much at all. But in terms of early game control, like Trunks' leader ability is just able to do it really, really well. And I'm very curious to see if we can get a better control aspect. And there's also one deck in this list that I think just does control just a little bit better, than what Trunks is able to do. But we'll talk about it. Goku Black, top of flex. I mean, he's forever going to be the high ceiling, the high risk, high reward type of deck. You need to be able to find your pieces. If you can't find your pieces, he flounders very hard. But he did get a little bit of support, and that makes him just a little bit better, but it doesn't really do enough to really get him out of the flex tier. Because again, it's just RNG at the end of the day for Goku Black. If your RNG sucks and you can't see your pieces, then Goku Black just is not as good as he could be. So, Zamasu and Haloku. Zamasu is insane right now. Just the fact that he is able to just constantly facilitate his hand by just constantly recurring stuff from the drop back to your hand due to the stuff that you play. He's able to play extremely defensive in the early game and until he's able to get his energy up to start playing his bigger bodies, his 5-cost Vegitos, 6-cost Vegitos. The Goku Black combo is really strong, especially with the new 4-cost uncommon Zamasu that basically boosts him defensively to be a 30k defensive leader. And just the fact that 6-cost Goku Black can just constantly play that guy out is insane. Haloku, I think, has a really decent matchup, actually, surprisingly enough, into Zamasu, just due to the fact that Haloku is able to play the control game a bit better than what Trunks is able to do. Halo Coup is very low end in terms of the stuff that you play. You're always facilitating your one-drop Satan City stuff all the time. Sometimes you play a 2-cost here and there. You're able to cheat out the 4-cost Gohan, Great Saiyaman, Great Saiyaman 2 and stuff for like 2 energy instead of 4 energy because the field exists. Pilaf is still a thing. Pilaf makes both of these decks really strong. And for people that say that Pilaf should be banned, I can see why there's an argument for it because of that. So like while Halo Coup isn't like crazy aggressive, he is able to kind of bide his time and kind of go into Zamasu when needed. So you could swap these two around, and I could see the argument for either one being the best blue deck. But as I see it right now, I think Zamasu is just a little bit better than Halo Coup, just because Halo Coup I think needs very specific cards in order to get his stuff back from the drop, whereas Zamasu can just play generic stuff and just constantly like do that, right, while also staying on the aggressive. So that's my big takeaway with those two. Gohan I think is probably bottom of flex. Yeah, I would say he's bottom of flex, just because he's able to do some things. Actually, you know, I am going to put him down in locals instead of flex. I think there's a possibility that, like, with 1 or 2 extra cards, Gohan could actually be up here in flex. But there is one deck that's doing what he's doing, and he's just doing it better. And I can't really see Gohan really doing that much into his better matchup, personally. Like, having to discard a card to play something cheaper, like an extra card cheaper from hand, like, it's a very specific ability that isn't always easy to get off, or at least feels good to get off. And the fact that he needs to have stuff in drop to really be able to facilitate that, there's just a deck that does what he does better. And that leaves Vegito. A lot of people were upset that we put him in decent tier in our prediction video. Again, the reason he was in decent was because we were averaging out like all of our opinions and putting him in a common spot that we could all agree on, right? Where I actually see him, I think he's in probably top to middle of strong tier. There's multiple ways that you can play this, but the biggest problem with Vegito right now is the fact that he is heavily RNG dependent. He's able to not be as reliant on the RNG aspect like Goku Black is, because Goku Black needs very specific cards to do the things he wants to do. But Vegito doesn't have that type of restriction. So your RNG really does just come down to, can you see your self-milling cards early enough? When you awaken, do you lose a lot of your super combos? Do you lose your higher end offensive cards that apply pressure to your opponent and prevents you from being able to capitalize on winning the game? Like, there's a different RNG aspect to Vegito than there is to Goku Black, and it works better for Vegito, but again, it just comes down to RNG. When it comes to compared to like what Zamasu and Halo Coup are doing, they're just able to do it better than what Vegito is able to do. I think with a little bit of extra support, maybe some better means of recurring the things that you need as Vegito to get your leader ability to pop off, right? Like, it's just, I think he could be a lot better. And I'm not saying that he's bad right now. You could have a really good time with this deck, have a lot of fun with him, and place decently well on the ranked ladder. But or even like take him into tournaments and have a decent, win-loss rate. But it's just the fact that like he is RNG dependent, whereas the other two are not as RNG dependent. If that makes sense. Now going into the greens, Broly. I think Broly has an argument to be in flex. I think for Broly, he got some support this set. The problem is red is still a very nasty setup into him, and red is still as strong as ever, which I think keeps Broly in check. Blue has means to remove stuff that's on his board. Yellow can really thin out his hand. and play the control aspect a lot better now than they were able to in the past. Ginyu might have a hard time in going into Broly, but I don't think it's nearly like as bad as it was like before, right? So yeah, I mean, just Broly can do some things. He can be a surprise turnout. But is he going to be plate topping at events? I don't foresee that. I really don't. Gohan, he's locals. I think there's some things that make him a little bit better, but it's just the fact that his ability is so costly. You're like constantly having to ramp your stuff up and down just to use your ability, your leader ability. Like really does hurt him. If he had a more effective means of being able to ramp to get himself up to the higher energy levels to play some of the bigger bodies that Green is known to have, I think it would be better. But the game is so fast now that it's really hard to play Gohan and not feel like you're falling behind on the energy curve compared to where you really want to be. So I think Gohan like needs some better ramping tools. But outside of that, I mean, he's really not all that like impressive right now. We're going to talk about Cell. I think Cell is in flex tier right now. You can do some cheeky stuff with Cell. Cell's pretty cheeky when it comes to this thing. He's slower than droids, and I think that hurts him more than anything else. But if he can get through his loop and do his loop consistently and do it well, then I think like Cell can actually be like up in the strong tier. But it's also if you're not able to see your pieces, if your opponent stalls you out and you're not able to get that free ramp off of your leader ability, if you don't have field on board, there's a lot of things that Cell can be hindered by that actually prevents him from performing well. So if he gets a little bit more support, I could see him being up here and strong, but I just don't see it. Ginger Town's still a fun piece of tech that I see a lot of people really starting to like use now. And it's actually really funny to see. I get excited every time I go up against a Cell player that actually does the Ginger Town stuff, but he's just not that. Piccolo, I am definitely putting at the top of flex now. I think Piccolo has gotten a lot of extra support, generic or like themed otherwise, that actually really does help to facilitate what he wants to do. His biggest issue still is the fact that he doesn't have an effective means of ramping. So getting to that 8 energy can be a little rough, but the cards that are added to his list that are added to his deck profile and like everything, like the way that people kind of build him, they're all good cards. They're all generically good cards or archetype specific cards that really do benefit Piccolo. It's just there's one aspect of this deck now that still hinders him. If he can get that one thing, that allows him to just ramp much more effectively than what he is currently able to do, he can easily make his way up here into strong and be consistently strong. But he doesn't have that. So right now he's just at the top of flex tier. He can do some crazy stuff. If you let him build up, then he can surprise you and he becomes a much harder matchup. But he's just not good enough right now I can't see him placing in tournaments. I can't see him being more than something that you want to run on the occasion because it's a fun deck to play and stuff like that. But I can see in certain matchups in the strong tier, like he could like he's basically doing what Vegito's able to do without the RNG and the risk, right? So like he could have a strong matchup at the Vegito. But again, it's just the ramping aspect to be able to facilitate what he wants to do. He doesn't have it. Green Vegeta. I think Green Vegeta can still surprise people on occasion. Yeah, I could still see him surprising people on occasion. Green Vegeta, like the thing is that he needs to do a very specific thing. If we're already complaining about the fact that Cell can pop off when he does his one specific thing well, or if Piccolo is able to build up in a way, like Green Vegeta is even more restrictive. He needs to stay within the 4 to 6 energy allotment. He has to constantly be ramping himself down in order to pop his leader ability off. He has cards in his deck that allow him to effectively stay around 4 or 5 energy and go into 6 to play the double strike. But in terms of 3-cost Saiyan support, there's not a lot of Saiyan only support that kind of came out that can really like help him and support him. So because of how restrictive his leader ability is, he's just not able to hold up compared to the rest of the meta right now. And it's really sad to kind of look at this in terms of where I see green and the fact that there's really only 2 decks that are worth running right now, because like we're still dealing with the droids problem. And I'm just going to set this up here. We still have a droids problem. The biggest issue right now is the fact that droids, like, there's no reason to run any other green deck besides these 2, because this is why I place them the way that I do. I think droids is still the #1 green deck due to the fact that they are a very generic leader that makes them very strong. They need to be at 6 energy to get to 30,000 power, which for androids is not that hard to do. They can get there by turn 3, turn 4, which is the same level of strength that this guy's able to do. The biggest difference, can anyone tell me what the biggest difference is between the 2 leaders? Droids is able to do it better because they're tied to their energy, which they can easily get by turn 4, and they draw on their 30k swing, whereas Namek Goku does not. Namek Goku is a very good deck. I'm very surprised by how strong this deck is. The problem with Namek Goku is that he is restrictive in how you need to build the deck. He needs the Namekian support, or the Planet Namek support. He needs to see his secret rares. He needs to see his pot of greeds. He needs to see his self-awakeners to get himself awakened fast enough to be able to do anything, really be able to pop off, right? So you need to see these very specific things in order for him to really do well. And he does those things really well. But why would you? But there's a level of RNG to it where if you don't see your pieces, you're not going to see a whole lot of success. Droids can just do the aggressive bit much better than what Namek Goku is able to do right now. You can build the androids deck a number of ways, and you don't feel hindered because of it. They're able to ramp super efficiently. Getting to 8 energy is not an issue for androids anymore, like it was in set 1 or even set 2. Set 2, they could somewhat feel restrictive in that regard, but like androids just feels better. And the other aspect of it too, compared to the 2, you need to be a little bit of a better pilot with Namek Goku compared to androids. Androids, you can kind of just play cards and it works in your favor. Namek Goku, you need to pilot the deck, not just around how you play it, but around whatever your matchup is. So that's where I see it. But you can make an argument for either of these 2 being better. I personally just think that droids is still the #1 green deck. We were real close. I think we were really close to androids being completely shelved off the top. But I think because of how consistently good androids has been going through each and every set, and the fact that Namek Goku is very restrictive right now, I think that's the thing that's keeping him up top. Now we get into yellow. Yellow, Frieza, I think is strong. I think Frieza is better. I don't think that they are he's not as good as some people claim that he is, but he's a lot more effective. Secret Rare Frieza is a perfect card for him. It's a body that he can restand back into active and protect. Going into the follow-up turn, you're able to just constantly remove stuff off the board right after that. You can run some of the Janemba stuff in this deck, and it plays very well. You can run the Double Strike Buu with some of the Majin Buu support, and you can make that work as well. Frieza is just able to, because of how generic he is he's got a lot more support now that actually helps him be more consistent. And I think that's what all he really needed was he just needed better consistency. In terms of like what your curve looks like, in terms of viable cards to be able that can actually be a decent matchup into your opponent. Like Frieza just has that now. There's just better yellow decks that are doing that can do what Frieza does on average, right? So that's just that. Cooler. I think Cooler could be a flex tier. Cooler. We'll put him here for now. I'm not sure where I would put him on flex. Flex is a very hard tier for me to like go through all these cards and be like, oh, this is better than this or this is better than this. So I'm not gonna like spend a whole lot of time, like trying to like pinpoint where they all lie in. But Cooler also got a little bit better. Again, the secret rare stuff, the King Cold that lets you cheat something out easy for free. On top of all of the meta Cooler support, Cooler is a bit better than he was before, but he is a crit leader, so he does flounder because he doesn't get the draw on his Awaken side. He not having that draw really hurts the crit leaders, especially going into this faster meta. And then on top of that, the fact that to activate his leader ability to get some of your secret rare freezes and stuff restand, or the King Colds, or whatever it is you're restanding, or to get the energy back, you have to discard a card. So that hurts him more than Beerus, because, or even Goku Black, because you're not drawing on your front side, and then when you awaken to activate his ability, you have to discard as well. He doesn't really have an effective means to draw after awakening. He's got one card, the 3-cost Cooler, but even then, like, that's not really enough. Because you're just going to be even at that point. You're not really getting extra draws off that. So I think Cooler just hurts. Like, he still needs more support, but you could run him now, and he could be a lot of fun to run. And I think in any of these matchups down here, I think he has a chance. But it's just the fact that, you know, he's a crit leader, and crit leaders just aren't all that great. Ginyu, I think Ginyu is top of flex. Maybe at best he's bottom of strong. He's still a deck that can really surprise you. He's able to do what like the U7's able to do and just cheat out bodies like crazy. And he's got a little bit of extra support with like the crit Jice, which does a lot for him. He's got the 2-cost or 3-cost Birder that can switch anything to rest mode. Like the new Raccoon allows him to boost something up to 25, which is great. He needs like 25k swingers to kind of go into that stuff. You could even run the Secret Rare Frieza in this, and I think it probably makes him better. Secret Rare Frieza just does a lot for a lot of these yellow decks. But it's one of those things though where like he's doing the fast gameplay and the wide fast plays better than most decks, but he doesn't have strong bodies to really counteract it. And some of these other decks up here do the control aspect really well. Like there's nothing in this Ginyu deck that Namek Goku can't control. There's nothing in this deck that Halo Q can't control. Both Daima Gokus can control. Samasu can't control. Vegito can't control. Frieza can't. Maybe not so much Frieza, but like you guys know what I'm saying. Like the top decks are just doing a lot more into Ginyu than what he's able to actually accomplish. Then we got Yellow Vegeta. I think Yellow Vegeta is probably towards the top end of strong. I don't think I can see an argument where he might be placed up here, right? However, it's a weird thing, guys. It really is a weird thing. I think Vegeta is still like really strong, but the problem is like when it comes to making this tier list and like just spending a lot more time on the ranked ladder, seeing what people are playing, I just never see this guy ever. So every time that I do one of these lists, it's always very hard for me to actually place this guy because I never get into a matchup against him. I never see people run him. I don't know what it is, but people never play him when I'm on the ranked ladder. It's weird. But I think I'm going to put him atop of strong. I could see an argument where he could be up here in demigods, but I think there is two yellow decks that really just stand out a little bit better than what Vegeta is able to do. This Boo, I think he's locals. He's not really getting any like good support that helps him on defense. There's nothing really in the game that he can cheat out. Like he's gotten no extra support outside of just generic stuff that Yellow got in general, right? So it's really like once again, it's hard for me to really value this guy. I can see the argument of him maybe being up in flex because the the super boost stuff is really good. Some of the Janemba support helps with the control aspect that this guy could probably work with. But in terms of just decks, like I don't think he's all that great. He just got completely like outshadowed. Now, in terms of the rest of yellow, you guys might be surprised by this. I think Super Boo's better than Janemba. That might be a little surprising, but I have done nothing but run into these two decks in the top matchup. And the reason I put Super Boo up here in Gods as opposed to Demigods is the fact that Boo is like androids compared to Namek Goku, and it's the fact that he's just a lot more consistent. Hand Destruction is super strong in yellow, and he's getting a new hand destruction card in Majin Buu and Ku that's just going to bolster him up. You can run a lot of the Janemba stuff in Super Buu and make it work for you. 3-cost Janemba does quite a bit. What is it? The Lord Jaguar into the Fierce Hyper Beam combo can work really well with Super Buu. There's like, it's the secret. I mean, if you wanted to run the secret rare Frieza, you could, but I probably wouldn't. But I mean, Super Boo's just so aggressive, man. He is so aggressive. I feel like now compared to set 4, I have a much harder time going into Super Buu than I do into Janemba. Janemba is a very good leader. My stance is that Janemba is definitely a much better leader than what Super Buu is because of how generic he is. The more generic support that comes for the yellow archetype, the better Janemba is going to be. Especially if they're going to keep incorporating things that allow you to restand energy back for free. But despite the fact that Super Buu is a restrictive leader and you need to run a lot of the Majin Buu support that KOs itself in order to really pop off with them, like you can just like, it's the same. It's the exact same argument that I have with droids and Namek Goku. Super Buu is just easier to pilot. He's very easier to pilot. Janemba, you need to be a really good pilot in this deck to really let it pop off, to really get it to pop off. You need to know how the ins and outs of this deck work in order to be better than what Super Boo's doing. But Super Buu is just so consistent and easy to play that anyone can pick up a Super Buu deck and they could like really take it all. Compared to a new player picking up Janemba and they're gonna have to spend a lot of time to get this deck to work for them, right? So that's my stance on those two. Some people might agree, some people might disagree. I think it's valid. Again, gods and demigods are interchangeable. These are the best decks. These are the best decks in the game right now, and the best decks. And any of these colored leaders can be interchangeable. There's an argument for either or, but this is just where I see it. Now we kind of get into black. We're going to go into Bardock. Bardock, I think, is going to be in the bottom of strong tier. Bardock didn't get a whole lot of support. He got a new 5-cost Bardock, Super Saiyan Bardock. That's just that Bardock card is a lot easier, better to play on curve than playing the Double Striker. The fact that you can play him at 5 cost, he can KO a card with just 1 combo card instead of 2, which is a lot more efficient depending on what it is you're trying to remove. And then the fact that he's a 30 crit is very oppressive. 30 crits are very hard to get around. But it's just in terms of like support, he didn't really get a whole lot of support. But I mean, what he's doing is still relevant. He's still a 25k swinger. He's still scrying your deck. You can get additional combo power if you find Bardock pieces. It's just I think he just needs a little bit more. But black is like, since black was introduced in set 3, black has been consistently good since its inception. So like for me to put Bardock down in flex just does not feel right. And yeah, like it doesn't feel right to put him down there. I think you can still build a Bardock deck and have it be solid, but you definitely got your money cut out for you compared to some other, like there's other black decks that are just better. Super Saiyan 4 Goku. Again, this is a deck that I don't really come across a whole lot. I think he has gotten better with some of the support. Like the 5-cost double swinger Goku, I think does a lot for this deck. The fact that like on leader ability, it's the fact of like his leader ability, I think, is for me. Like the support in the deck feels better. The support in the deck makes him a lot more consistent. The problem being though is that you have to do a very specific thing with the leader, and I feel like I'm not always able to use that energy marker or even an open energy to really boost up my cards on board. And the fact that it's only like certain cards that you want to spend that on as opposed to other cards makes it a little bit harder. Like the fact that low-end cards are easier to remove now more than ever, like removal is like bigger than it's ever been in this set. And so because of that, boosting up like a 2-cost card or a 3-cost card does not feel nearly as good. Even on certain 4-cost cards, like it doesn't feel good to really spend that energy or that energy marker on a 4-cost card because 4 costs can be removed with relative ease. So like you're really kind of relegated down to like some of your 5 for the majority of 5 costs, and then maybe some 4 costs like the secret rare. I just don't feel like I'm getting enough value off of the leader or enough use out of the leader effect to see the value in it compared to some of what these other leaders are doing, right? But that's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just the lack of not really seeing going into that matchup on the rank ladder. But I mean, he's still a strong deck. Like this black support again is really good, and it just the better the generic support that. The better the generic support is for black, the better that a leader like him is going to be. But that does lead us to our top 2 black leaders. Gogeta and Baby. Now, Baby, this is a hard one. I don't want to necessarily say that Gogeta is better, right? Because Gogeta is a very good generic deck, but a lot of his support is for the Another World special trait. And the Another World special trait is not good. It's not good at all. There's a couple cards you might run in that particular archetype, but for the most part, you're pretty much running the same build that you're running for this guy. You're running the same build. You're probably running a lot of similar cards that you would run in Bardock. You're probably running a lot of similar cards that you would run in Baby. So it doesn't really make much sense to say that Gogeta is better. Now what he's doing is great because it's generic, because you're like on your unawakened side, you're not as reliant on energy markers as you are in the later game. So self-awakening is not necessarily like a big concern for Gogeta compared to Baby. And then like when you get awakened, just using an energy to make a marker, or like is just great. I feel like Secret Rare Goku is a lot better now than it's ever been, because you gotta look at it from this perspective. If you don't awaken early, right? Or like if you aren't awakened by the time you play Secret Rare down, Secret Rare generates you a marker to when you play them. So gotta word this a little bit better. If you awaken, but you don't have marker, or if you want to play him in the later match, right? But you're out of energy, but you don't have a base marker at any point, right? You can play Secret Rare, swing to generate a marker, and then you just break marker to make marker, and you still get the draw off. Like that's like little things like that. It's so simplistic, and it's such like it's such a weird thing to do, but it works for what that card wants to do, right? So like things like that, just being able to generate a marker to get like some of your draws off with the new SR Super Saiyan 3 and stuff like that. Like Gogeta, I think is just generic enough where if he gets a bit more generic support, like this deck is gonna pop the hell off. Now Baby though, I got 2 really good cards that he can use in his deck. 3 technically if you want to count Super Saiyan 3 Goku as well. The mid-range Baby is as strong as it's ever been. He's able to more consistently self-awaken because of the Brainwash Bulma. The Brainwash Bulma, like, if you're at 5 energy, turn 3, or 5 life, turn 3, you play the 3-cost SR Super Baby 1 to play Bulma, right? So that's 2 cards out of your hand. That's 2 cards out of your hand, but you're self-awakening from 5 to 4, and then you're awakening. So the 2 cards that you're getting from just awakening replaces those 2 that you just played. Then you rest the Bulma. You rest the Bulma to draw a card. You swing with the Baby SR, combo the Bulma. You just draw 2 there, and then you still have your leader swing, so you're +3 that turn because of that, which is just crazy. It's a crazy turn. Like something like that is insane. Having free recursion that you can just remove off board and not have to worry about your opponent removing it is great. Then obviously extra draw power, like the draw power in Baby has always been fantastic, and that now you're giving him an SR Super Saiyan 3 Goku that can draw 2 when you break marker, and generating marker for Baby is not a big issue either because of Bola. So it's like Baby is just consistently good still, and he's still doing the things that he was doing really well in set 4. But once again, you could swap these two. And I could see the argument for Gogeta being better than Baby, but I think Baby is still just an oppressive deck. Not oppressive, but like he's a very solid, strong deck that's not lacking in archetype support whatsoever. Whereas Gogeta might want more generic stuff than the archetype support that it got. So, but that is our set 5 tier list. Let me know what you guys think down below. Is this better than the prediction video? I'm pretty sure this is better than the prediction video. Like it's like there is just like I don't know what else to say. Like people can like what they like, hate what they hate, but at the end of the day, like when you test this stuff in ranked, when you go up against stuff in ranked and you're consistently able to outpace some of these decks with some of these top end decks, it just makes sense. Like Vegito is strong. I know a lot of people are very defensive about Vegito right now, but I am telling you, I have never had an issue playing against a Vegito deck. I maybe lost 1 or 2 times in maybe the dozens of times that I played against it. So it is like, it just is what it is, right? It is what it is. This is my thoughts, my personal preference. You guys let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, though, please consider hitting that like button, subscribe for more Fusion World content, and I will see you guys all in the next video. Peace.